and welcome. Msit 5450, Section 31, Designing and Building a Security Program. My name is Larry Wilson, the instructor. And this week, week 10, we'll be discussing technology and operations deliverables. Here's the course outline. Week 1, course introduction and scope. Week 2, 3, 4, business risk requirements, engineering design requirements, technology operations requirements. Week 5, 6, 7, business risk workloads, engineering design workloads, technology operations workloads. And week 8, 9, 10, business risk deliverables, engineering design deliverables, and this week, technology operations deliverables. And starting next week, we'll talk about specific topics in cybersecurity or more relevant topics to today. A MITRE attack framework in week 11, threat detection and response framework, week 12, week 13, application security framework, week 14, CMMC framework, and then week 15, we'll do a course review and summary. And here's today's agenda. 3 parts to the technology deliverables: system security plan, cyber risk assessment, and plan of action and milestones. Week 10 learning objectives: understand what a system security plan is and how that works, understand how to do a cybersecurity risk assessment, and then understand the plan of action and milestones. Here's our security by design approach. Before the attack, during the attack, and after the attack, we want to make sure that we understand how our attack surface, our threats work, understand a framework for cyber attacks, as well as our security by design, how we mitigate common cyber attacks. So 4 attacks that we spoke about earlier in the course included ransomware, business email compromise, credential stuffing, and web application attack. This leads to our cyber attack framework. In this case, it's the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain. And then next week, we'll introduce the MITRE attack framework. For the Lockheed Martin framework, we have reconnaissance and weaponization before the attack, delivery, exploitation, installation during the attack, command and control action on objectives after the attack. And for security by design, we have requirements and design before the attack, select, implement, and operate security controls during the attack, verify and maintain after the attack. And here's our desired outcomes using a security by design approach. At the risk management, business risk level, we use 3 different frameworks: the NIST risk management framework, the NIST cybersecurity framework, and the risk reporting framework, the ICPA. For the deliverables at the business risk level, we have the cybersecurity strategy, the cybersecurity policy, and the cybersecurity risk reporting. For our engineering level, we also have 3 frameworks: the CDM technical architecture, CDM technical dashboard, and the CDM approved product list. And for deliverables, we have cybersecurity workload, cybersecurity workforce, and the cybersecurity dashboards, which is the AWARE scorecard from CDM. And for the operations, which is this week, we have 3 frameworks again: security control standards, threat detection and response, and the SOC operating model. And for deliverables, we have the system security plan, the cyber risk assessment, and the plan of action and milestones. And here's the cyber operations frameworks. Once again, we're looking at 3 different stages of the attack: before, during, and after. Where we focus on critical assets: what's the thing, what does it do, what does it have access to, and who controls it. And security by design: before the attack, requirements and design; during the attack, implement, operate, and monitor; after the attack, test and maintain. And so the security control standards that map to the operations program include multiple best practices, including the CIS critical security controls, NIST 853 controls, PCI DSS controls, ISO 27000 controls. And in this lecture, we'll be focusing on the CIS critical security controls. The threat detection and response framework focuses on security orchestration, security automation, and security response, or SOAR. And the SOC operating model, we look at the SOC operations and workflows. And for each of these capabilities at the operations level, we're really looking at protecting our organizational assets, which include our computer systems, our laptops, our user accounts, our privileged user accounts, our network devices such as our switches and routers, printers, and our cloud assets, both before the attack, during the attack, and as well as after the attack. So the operations program deliverables include the system security plan, which is the target state where we want to be, the risk assessment, which is the current state where we are today, and the plan of action and milestones, where we look at the gaps between the current state and target state and put a implementation plan together in order to remediate those gaps and bring us closer to the target state. And for this lecture, we're focused on the 20 critical controls, which include inventory and control of hardware assets, inventory and control of software assets, continuous vulnerability management, controlled use of administrative privileges, secure configuration of hardware and software, maintenance, monitoring, and analysis of audit logs, email and web browser protections, malware defense, limit and control ports, protocols, and services, data recovery capabilities, secure configuration of network devices, boundary defense, data protection, controlled access based on the need to know, wireless access control, account monitoring and control, security awareness and training, application software security, incident response and management, and pen tests and red team exercises. So the summary and the approach for the security operations. This is a sample assessment that I had done. Wilson Cyber was hired to conduct a high-level assessment of XYZ cybersecurity program. The assessment provides a high-level set of observations and recommendations regarding the current state and the proposed target state of the cybersecurity program. The program is based on the following industry best practices: the NIST Risk Management Framework, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, and the CIS Critical Security Controls. The scope includes endpoints, desktops, laptops, printers, business applications, IT services implemented and maintained within the XYZ data center. And in addition, key business applications hosted by third-party cloud-based service providers are included. So this is the entire set of assets or IT assets that's managed by XYZ company. The current state and recommendations. The current security profile is a 53, and this is just a fictitious assessment that I had done based on the CIS controls. Third-party managed services are included and assessed on a case-by-case basis. So for the third-party services, we need to assess those individually. Thinking back of the risk management framework, we're looking at the authorization boundary. The authorization boundary includes two boundaries, if you think about it: the boundary of these applications that are hosted in the data center. Secondly, the boundary of all the applications that are hosted in cloud services or third parties. Considerable progress has been made over the past 2 years by the Director of IT to improve security delivery and manage cybersecurity risks. And this document provides recommendations that will continue to improve the cybersecurity posture of the organization, and those recommendations are included in the POAM, the Plan of Action and Milestones. So here's the current security score of a 52, and you can see each of the 20 critical controls is measured independently. Again, for the scope, which is the authorization boundary, which includes the data center systems. The target security score, as you can see, is an 80. So the gap is between where we currently score for each of the 20 critical controls, anywhere from a low score of less than 10% compliance, all the way up to a high score of 100% compliance. Again, control by control, we're looking at the score for the particular authorization boundary, which is, again, the data center services. As far as the roadmap goes, we have 6 different recommendations. Recommendation number 1 is the security strategy, or what's our approach to remediating the gap between the current score of 52 and the target score of 80. Recommendation number 2 will focus on, based on CDM, what's on the network. We'll look at the controls that map to hardware asset management, software asset management, continuous vulnerability management, and configuration management. Recommendation number 3, who's on the network, and we'll focus on identity and access management, which is essentially the CDM, who's on the network, which includes trust, behave, credentials, and privileges. Recommendation number 4, how the network's protected. Here we'll look at bound E, bound F, and bound P. Recommendation number 5, what's happening on the network, which is manage events, operate, monitor, improve, design and build in security. And finally, recommendation number 6, we'll look at the data protection itself, where we'll be looking at data classification, data protection, data loss prevention, data spillage, and information rights management. So that's how we'll build our POAM, our plan of action and milestones. We'll map the CIS controls and the gaps in those controls to the 5 key areas of CDM, which is what's on the network, who's on the network, how's the network protected, what's happening on the network, and how's the data protected. This is the approach we're going to be using for our security program. So focus area number 1 are the strategic goals and the desired outcomes. The cybersecurity strategy prepares the organization for the digital challenges of the 21st century by increasing the security and resilience of applications, infrastructure, critical data assets. Why have a strategy? In today's digital world, so many of the daily activities, whether at work or in personal lives, are enabled by computers or mobile devices. The organization counts on these devices and the complex interconnected digital systems supporting them to deliver digital services, communicate with customers, conduct business, operate machinery, store sensitive information. Developing and publishing a cybersecurity strategy enables the organization to meet the changing and evolving digital business needs. Cybersecurity strategy establishes a clear vision, establishes detailed objectives and documented deliverables. Taking the actions enumerated in the strategy will provide the organization with a means to measure progress. So we're going to build a risk-based approach based on the NIST cybersecurity framework and a risk methodology, identifying systematic risks that may affect the secure delivery of essential services is the highest priority. Assessment of the organization's cybersecurity risk will help leadership prioritize risk as a matter relevant to the current technology and processes. Once the risks are identified and prioritized, the organization can execute cost-effective remediation. We have here 3 strategic goals. Goal number 1 is to increase the security and the resilience of key applications and infrastructure by supporting the digital business objectives and protect information assets of employees, contractors, and customers. The desired outcome: increase security and resilience of digital assets through a comprehensive cybersecurity program. Establish a risk-based approach that measures program maturity based on business impact. And develop a cybersecurity roadmap that provides leadership information needed to set priorities. Strategic goal number 2 is to create a digital aware culture by improving cyber awareness across the organization. Desired outcomes: to establish continuous training and awareness program and measure improved knowledge and skills, and to deliver or develop behavior-based metrics for the improvements in operations, systems, and applications. And then finally, strategic goal number 3 is growth of the organization's innovation ecosystem, enhance and strengthen the resilience of critical infrastructure, security and privacy of employees, contractors, and customers. Desired outcomes: develop a more public-private innovation and partnering opportunities. And one of the benefits of using standard frameworks is it enables public-private innovation and partnering, because other organizations who are using the same frameworks can share information consistently. And second, we want to provide greater opportunity for collaboration with peer organizations. So focus area number 2 is business risk management. Here we're looking at the core capabilities for our risk management program, starting with the NIST risk management framework, where we looked at the authorization boundary, the scope of authorizing officials' responsibility for protecting information resources. We're also looking at the 7-step approach. Step 1, prepare to execute the risk management framework from an organization and systems level perspective. Step 2, categorize the system information processed, stored, and transmitted by the system. Step 3, select an initial set of controls for the system and tailor the controls as needed. Step 4, implement the controls within the environment of operation. Step 5, assess the controls to determine if they are implemented and operated correctly. Step 6, authorize the system based on determination of risk to operations and assets. Step 7, monitor the system and associated controls on an ongoing basis. So that's the approach we'll be using based on the risk management framework. The specific functions that we'll be looking at are based on the cybersecurity framework, where we have 5 core functions. Identify, which is to manage cybersecurity risk, organizational systems, assets, data, and capabilities. Then we have protect, ensure the delivery of critical infrastructure services. We have detect, identify the occurrence of a cybersecurity event. Respond, take action regarding a detected cybersecurity event. And recover, restore the capabilities or services that were impaired through a cybersecurity event. And we're going to be using the 7 steps of the cybersecurity framework to conduct a risk assessment, which is step 1, prioritize and scope. Identify business mission objectives, organizational priorities. Step 2 is orient, identify related systems, assets, regulatory requirements, and overall risk approach. Step 3 is to create a current profile, category and subcategory outcomes currently being achieved. Step 4, conduct a risk assessment, analyze environment for the likelihood and the impact of an event. Step 5, create a target profile, categories and subcategories describing the desired outcome. Step 6, determine and prioritize gaps, compare current profile and target profile to determine the gaps. Then step 7, implement action plan, determine which actions to take regarding the gaps. Focus area number 3 is cybersecurity engineering and design. And for this, we'll be using the DHS Continuous Diagnostics and Mitigation Program. 5 key focus areas: what's on the network, hardware asset management, software asset management, configuration settings management, vulnerability management. Who's on the network, trust, behave, credentials, and privileges. How's the network protected? Boundary filtering, boundary encryption, boundary physical access controls. What's happening on the network? Manage events, design and build in security, operate, monitor, and improve. How's the data protected? Data discovery, data protection, data loss prevention, data spillage, and information rights management. And for the controls themselves, at the operations level, we'll be focusing on the CIS controls. And really, I look at control 0 as what we just discussed. We discussed the risk management framework, the cybersecurity framework, the CDM program, which really provides us our InfoSec program governance and risk. Control 1 for CIS is inventory and control of hardware assets. Control 2, inventory and control of software assets. Control 3 is continuous vulnerability management. Control 4 is controlled use of administrative privileges. Control 5, secure configuration of hardware and software. Control 6 is maintenance, monitoring, analysis of audit logs. Control 7, email and web browser protection. Control 8, malware defense. Control 9, limit and control network ports, protocols, and services. Control 10, data recovery capabilities. Control 11, secure configuration of network devices. Control 12, boundary defense. Control 13, data protection. Control 14, controlled access based on the need to know. Control 15, wireless access control. Control 16, account monitoring and control. Control 17, security awareness and training program. Control 18, application software security. Control 19, incident response and management. Control 20, penetration tests and red team exercises. So we start with looking at the systems, the networks, the applications we're going to be including in this assessment. Step 1 is really to look at the network architecture. And this is a network architecture of a assessment that I completed last year as a general description. This shows a school, which includes faculty networks, student networks, guest networks, and then we have the data center itself, VM and storage networks, as well as utility networks and third-party vendor networks. These are all connected through a firewall to an internet service provider. In this case, it was Comcast as the internet service provider. But whatever system that you're going to be assessing, you want to start out with the network architecture to make sure you have a good understanding of how the network is architected. We will look at the initial assessment. These are the areas of focus for our controls. IT cybersecurity strategy for core IT solutions. Current score is based on the CIS controls. Current profile reflects the current score on the solution. Strategy is to mitigate IT services to the cloud or migrate to the cloud as appropriate where they are provisioned and supported by third-party providers. So again, we're going to look at the score in 5 different areas. What's on the network? Who's on the network? How the network's protected? What's happening on the network? How the data is protected? 30% of the CIS controls map to what's on the network. DHS CDM requirements are to deploy sensors and policies to manage hardware asset management, software asset management, configuration settings management, vulnerability management. And the related CIS controls are control 1, 2, 3, 5, 9, and 11. When we look at our current score from our assessment, we're at a 197 for these 5 controls. Our target score is at 480, which is essentially 80 times 6, which is 480. So we have a gap of about 283 points that we have to make up in our POAM. And that's for the what's on the network area, which is 30% of our total security program. The second focus area, who's on the network. Here we're looking at DHS CDM requirements where we deploy in sensors and policies to manage trust, behave, credentials, and privileges. 3 CIS controls, control 4, 14, and 17. Our current score is 161. Our target score is 240, so we're about 79 points lower than where we want to be. And again, that's for 3 controls, which comprises 15% of our total program. Third focus area, house and network protected, is 20% of our program. This is the DHS CDM requirements, deploy sensors and policies for bound F, which is filtering, bound E, which is encryption, and bound P, which is physical access control. And we have 4 CIS controls, control 7, 12, 15, and 20. Our current score is a 208. Our target score is a 320. So we need to make up about 112 points to get to where we want to be. Again, how the network's protected is a 30%, I'm sorry, 20% of our overall score. Focus area 4, what's happening on the network, 25% of our overall score. DHS CDM requirements, deploy sensors and policies to manage events, design and build in security, operate, monitor, and improve. Here we're mapping to CIS controls 6, 8, 16, 18, 19. Current score 303, target score 400. So we have to make up 97 points within those 5 different controls. And again, that will constitute 25% of our total score. And finally is the area 5, how's the data protected, 10%. Really only 2 remaining CIS controls out of the 20. So it's DHS requirements for policies and sensors for data discovery, data protection, data loss prevention, data spillage, and data information rights management. CIS controls 10 and 13. Current score is 133. The target score is 160. So we need to make up approximately 67 points to get to where we want to be. So here's the overall scorecard where we have a current score of a 69. And again, we're going to be looking at how we improve that score to bring it up to an 80. And this is kind of the evolution of this particular assessment that I had done. My beginning score was in August of 2019. As I said earlier, it started with a 52. And you can see the different areas of focus for the 20 critical controls and what our initial scorecard looked like. We then did an assessment 9 months later in March of 2020, and it had improved from a 52 to a 69 through the implementation of some programs by the organization. We'll talk about what some of those were. So we had considerable improvement, and then our target score remains as an 80. And additional work that we're focused on doing with this particular implementation, for control number 1, we want to enable Aruba ClearPass for port level access control, and they're working with a third-party provider called Wally Computing. Number 2, develop a software whitelist, implement via Sophos endpoint protection and Jamf for which is managing their Mac machines, because this is a educational institution. Number 3, vulnerability management. Here's where they really have a pretty big gap. They're currently at 29. They need to get to an 80. Implement a vulnerability management program. And again, this will be managed by Wally, their third-party provider. Control number 4, they're at a 33. They need to get to an 80. They need to manage individuals' admin privileges, implement a jump server with multi-factor, and work with Wally. Control number 5, they're currently at a 40. They need to get to an 80. Manage configuration on endpoints and servers, which is a change management process. And control number 6, maintenance, monitoring, analysis of audit logs. They're very low here. They're at a 13. They need to get to an 80. Consider continuous monitoring MSSC proposal from a couple of different vendors, but they're focused right now on Winslow technology with an Arctic Wolf SIM. Email web browser protections, they're in pretty good shape. They're at 70. They need to get to an 80, where they need to lock down browsers and ensure DMARC, SPF, DKIM, and email, implement DNS security. Malware defenses, they're really where they want to be. They're at an 88. Ensure that Sophos managed endpoints configured and working. They're currently at 80 on control of ports, protocols, and services. They need to perform configuration management port scans. Data recovery, they're at 100%. Ensure configuration backups by Wally and test the configuration restores, because now they're going to migrate from managing their own backups to having Wally, their third-party provider, manage backups. Secure configuration of network devices is control number 11. They're currently at a 43. They need to get to an 80. Manage administrative accounts via jump servers and MFA. Boundary defense, they're currently at a 67. They need to get to an 80. Manage MFA through one login and scanning for malware before allowing access. And the next, from 13 to 19, they're already pretty much where they need to be, and that was because of implementations they've made over the last 7 months. Implement Spirion for endpoints and USB devices for data protection. Implement audit logging, monitoring on endpoints, and again, consider the MSSP proposal from Winslow Technology. Work with Wally to ensure secure configuration of wireless networks for Control 15, wireless access control. Account monitoring and control, work with Wally to manage Active Directory, OneLogin, and Sophos manage endpoint. For security awareness training, continue to evolve and maintain security awareness and training program. For application software security, establish program for third-party management for key applications. So in their case, most of their key applications are already provided by third parties. So here's where they're going to have to go back and look at the third parties to make sure that they have a security program in place. Incident response and management, work with Wally to operationalize their incident response plan, because they'll now migrate that to Wally instead of doing it themselves. And finally, for pen test, they need to have an independent pen test. And they looked at third-party solutions such as Norm Shield, Risk Recon, and Msit. So here's their assessment of the third-party providers. The first one we just went through is the hosted solutions. Now they're third-party solutions. IT cybersecurity strategy for third-party managed solutions include multiple third-party services from a variety of service providers. These include Paycom for payroll, Office 365 for email, Snap for student health, athletic training system, Image Silo for student records, Naviance for career life readiness, etc. And here's where they currently stand with assessing these third parties. The first one with Paycom. Paycom ensures efficient, effective payroll processing because Paycom empowers businesses with one system of record for employees. Any information affecting payroll is entered once with changes that take place system-wide. We did an assessment on Paycom. Office 365 is an online hosted messaging solution. It gives users access to the capabilities of Microsoft Exchange Server email, calendar, contacts, tasks from PCs, the web, and mobile devices as a cloud-based service. Integrates fully with Active Directory, enabling administrators to use group policies, as well as other administrative tools to manage online features across their environment. We looked at Office 365 security controls. Snap Health Center, student medical information. Snap revolutionized electronic health documentation. A simple one-click interface, comprehensive student data import capability, includes most student information systems, to get you up and running quickly. Snap Health Center is hosted in the state-of-the-art data center, saving organizations the hassle and expense of hosting it yourself. Once the cloud configuration is complete, Snap Health Center is ready to set up and use. Next, we look at our athletic training system, which is the electronic health record system designed for the athletic trainers. The platform is used in high organizations, colleges, clinics, hospitals, industrial settings. Athletic training system is the leading software package in the sports medicine industry for use by athletic trainers, and it is used throughout the United States and around the world. Image Silo has student records, cloud-based documentation management, the world's most trusted enterprise client management system. Implementing an enterprise content management system will provide a wealth of benefits for the organization. Electronically managing documents is a great way to improve efficiency, increase document accessibility, enhance data security, reduce operational costs. Next, we looked at Blackbaud, which the product was Razor's Edge, which is an advancement application. Recognized as a leading tool for tracking all aspects of fundraising, from donors to gifts to campaigns, funds appeals, and much more. With Razor's Edge, you get all the donor management fundraising capabilities you need in order to connect with constituents and raise money anytime, anywhere. And finally, Naviance is a comprehensive college career life readiness solution, helps districts and schools align student strengths and interests to post-secondary goals, improving student outcomes, and connecting to learning for life. Connecting student interest to their potential career paths early ensures active participation in their own academic success, opens their eyes to the world of career opportunities. Career planning tools and Naviance allow students to understand how their strengths, their goals, and their interests can lead to exciting careers. Now, the three that you see in red, Paycom, Snap, and Naviance, we had a third-party assessor. In this case, it was Norm Shield, come in and do an independent assessment of those, in addition to having these each one of these applications provide a self-assessment of their security controls. So I'll walk through the results of the independent assessment conducted by Norm Shield for each of those three, Paycom, Snap, and Naviance. Starting with Paycom, is the third-party risk report, again from a company called Norm Shield, who provides risk reports. You can have them do this for any of your third-party providers. But this is an independent assessment conducted by Norm Shield. And as you can see, they look at about 20 different areas of focus: digital footprint, patch management, application security, content delivery network security, website security, SSL, TLS, credential management, hacktivist shares, social networking, information disclosure, attack service, DNS health, email security, DDoS resiliency, network security, brand monitoring, IP reputation, fraudulent apps, fraudulent domains, web ranking. And the document that they provide is about an 80-page document, goes into detail each of these 20 different areas. The overall score for this particular assessment of PACOM was a B. The score itself was an 85, and you can see how well PACOM did in each of these 20 different categories. A lot of A's, some B's, 2 C's with network security and brand monitoring, 1 D with CDN security. You can take a deep dive into any one of these areas and see how the rankings were developed for, in this case, PACOM. Did a similar assessment for SNAP, which was the student health records. Once again, the same 20 areas were measured. Their score was an 84, just 1 point lower than PACOM. And again, their areas that need improvement include website security, where they scored a 73, information disclosure a 73, email security they scored a 69, and brand monitoring they scored a 63. And there are specific tests that were run by Norm Shield for each of these 20 different reports. And finally, we ran the same against Naviance, which is the third-party provider as well. And Naviance, their scoring was lower. Really, they scored a C+, overall score of a 78, or an average score of a 78. They have several areas of yellow and red. Some of the areas they need improvement: website security 73, social network 72, information disclosure 73, brand monitoring 73, IP reputation 73, fraudulent domains 73, TLS SSL strength 63, and patch management 49, which is they scored an F in that category, which means they need to keep up with their latest patches. And once again, for the assessment that I did here, we would go to Naviance themselves, get a self-assessment, and then we would compare that assessment to what we got from Norm Shield. Then we went back to Naviance and said, look, this is what we see as areas that you need improvement, and had Norm Shield, have Naviance go back and provide us a report where those gaps occurred. And just once again, each one of these 20 areas, we had a page or two detail outlining exactly why the score came out to where it was. So that's how we assess the third-party services, the cloud services. Now we'll walk through how we came up with this current score of a 69, the initial score of a 52 on the assessment itself for those who are hosted in the data center. Summary of the improvements that were put in place between August of 29, where once again this organization scored a 52, through March of 2020, when the organization moved up to a 69. And again, we're looking to get them to an 80 as their ultimate goal. They implemented 5 different major changes. Number 1 is Box. They moved their faculty staff file server to the cloud. Instead of hosting on-site file shares, they moved everything to Box. That's the ability to deploy document retention policy and help protect against the spread of ransomware. They also implemented a single sign-on called One Login, identity and access management solution for staffs and students, single sign-on for all third-party software and mobile, single sign-on. So all these different cloud services they can now access through One Login, where their credentials are stored. They will place 2-factor in front of all third-party SaaS solutions and give IT visibility into the applications. And they want to add themselves as admins. Provisioning, offboarding, reporting are all managed now through One Login. Very much simplified who's on the network. All the app capabilities are around protecting IT accounts. They also implemented Spirion, which is software to search PII, other confidential information on endpoints, cloud apps like Outlook, Box, G Suite, OneDrive. They implemented endpoint protection through Sophos, managed antivirus on all endpoints and servers. Encryption key management also includes a capability called Phish Threat, which helped with their security awareness and training program. And then finally, they hired a third party called Wally Computer to come in and manage their operations, their desktop servers, networks, develop security program procedures with assistance from Wally. So Wally is now a full partner in their security program. They still don't provide SOC services. That's why they're looking still at Winslow Technology possibly to be providing those services and move up the scores on those areas they still are a little bit behind. But these are the major improvements that this particular organization implemented, and the result of these improvements, as you saw earlier, up their score from a 52 to a 69. So now I'm going to walk you through in the final part of this lecture how they actually came up with their score of a 69. Again, this is their second time through. Their first time through, they scored a 52. Their second time through, they scored a 69. But this is exactly the process that we went through to come up with their security score. So we started with control number 1, walked through all 20 critical controls. Control number 1 is to actively manage, inventory, track, and correct all hardware devices in the network. Only approved devices are given access. Unauthorized, unmanaged devices are found and prevented from gaining access. Here's the diagram for control number 1, which we've seen before. Here are the IT solutions that were implemented by this particular company. Desktops, primarily Macs. Laptops, also Macs. Windows servers, file shares, moving to Box. That's why they implemented Box. Storage system, Avamar backups, which again, they won't have to back up when they move to the cloud because the cloud will back them up for automatically. And cloud storage was Box.com and OneDrive. Some of the security tools and solutions that this particular organization had in place: SolarWinds, Jamf Pro, Aruba ClearPass, One Login for identity management, Spirion DLP, endpoint servers, email cloud, Sophos managed endpoint server protection via agents, Sophos XG firewall, UTM on Sophos managed endpoints. Wally solution, Wally has their own agents to manage the devices, and Phish Threat from Sophos for their security awareness training. Using all those tools and technologies against the assets they're trying to manage for control number 1, we see for each of the 8 subcontrols, utilize active device discovery tool, utilize passive device discovery tool, utilize DHCP logging, maintain an accurate up-to-date inventory, report hardware assets, network address, device owner, ensure unauthorized assets are removed, utilize 802.1x port level access control, and utilize client certificates. You can see the actual solution that was implemented by this company plus their partner Wally. Devices are discovered in the inventory through SolarWinds, Jamf, Sophos, and Wally. Devices are discovered and included in the passive discovery tool, static IPs for servers, Sophos, and Wally agents. Endpoint devices use DHCP for static IPs, as well as static IPs. Most solutions are cloud-based. Inventory is managed by SolarWinds and Jamf solutions, along with Wally inventory. Hardware endpoints are included in Jamf inventory, as well as Wally. Unauthorized devices are identified and removed. Now, those are all of the 6 areas that are 100% compliant. The other 2 is not enabled. They could do this, but they haven't. This gets them to their overall score of 75, which was their score for control number 1. Control number 2, they're at 100%, and they're inventorying their software, which the control is to actively manage, inventory, track, and correct all software in the network. Only authorized software is installed and can execute. Unauthorized, unmanaged software is found and prevented from installation or execution. Once again, we listed the diagram, the solutions, and the tools. Here we have 10 subcontrols for managing software, and made primarily it was Jamf Pro for inventory, Sophos managed endpoint, XG firewall, and Wally agents for cloud-based apps allowed them to 100% compliance with control number 2, which is managing their software assets. And as I mentioned earlier, with control number 3, they still have a gap, continuous vulnerability management. The control description is continuously acquire, assess, and take action on new information in order to identify vulnerabilities, remediate, minimize the window of opportunity for attackers. So they're not really doing this today. This is on their next roadmap item, is to start getting more focused with vulnerability management, and they're going to be purchasing Qualys vulnerability scanning and have Wally run those scans. That will get them much improvement on control number 3 from their current score of a 29. Control number 4, We focus on administrative privileges, processes and tools to track, control, prevent, correct the use, the assignment, configuration of administrative privileges on computers, networks, and applications. Here you see their current scores are 33, so they're not really doing well with administrative privileges as well. However, since they've just signed on with Wally, they're going to be able to have Wally take over this control completely, and that will really improve where they are currently deficient in managing administrative privileges. Control number 5, secure configuration for mobile devices, laptops, and servers. Establish, implement, actively manage, track, report on, and correct securely configuration of mobile devices, laptops, servers, and workstations using a rigorous configuration management and change management process to prevent attackers from exploiting vulnerable services and settings. Here we have 5 subcontrols for control number 5. Maintain standard configurations, secure images, store the master images, deploy system configuration management tools, utilize a SCAP compliant configuration monitoring system. Current scores are 40%, but once again, once they move this to Wally, with the Wally agents, they'll significantly improve their configuration management control. Control number 6, maintenance, monitoring, analysis of audit logs. The description is to collect, manage, and analyze audit log of events that can help detect, understand, and recover from an attack. Here we have 8 subcontrols, 3 synchronized time sources, local logging has been enabled, logging to include event source, date, user, timestamp. Ensure all systems that store logs have adequate storage. Ensure the appropriate logs are being aggregated to a central log management system. Deploy a SIM or log analytic tool. On a regular basis, review the logs, and on a regular basis, tune the SIM. They're currently not doing this. They're going to be working towards improvements on this, but now Wally doesn't provide this functionality. They have to look at Winslow Computing or some other computing company outsourcing in order to improve the score on this control. The next is email web browser protections. They're at a 70% right now. The control is to minimize the attack surface and the opportunities for attackers to manipulate human behavior through their interaction with web browsers and email systems. Here we have 10 subcontrols. Fully supported web browsers, email clients, disable unauthorized browser or clients plugins, ensure only authorized scripting languages are run, ensure URL filters that limit systems' ability to connect to websites, subscribe to URL categorization to ensure they're up to date, log all URL requests from each of the organization's systems, use DNS filtering to block access to known malicious domains, implement DMARC, policy and verification, SPF and DKIM standards, block all email attachments if the file types are unnecessary, use sandboxing to analyze and block inbound email attachments. Here, once again, they're scoring 70%, so they're doing a good job on here already, but they'll look at improving this in the next migration in the program. Malware defenses, they're in really good shape with this since the implementation of Sophos. Control the installation, spread, and the execution of malicious code. Multiple points in the enterprise are optimizing the use of automation to enable rapid updating of defense, data gathering, and corrective action. Here we have 8 subcontrols. Centrally manage anti-malware software. Ensure the organization's anti-malware software updates its scanning engine and signature database on a regular basis. Enable anti-exploitation features such as DEP, ASLR. Apply protection to a broader set of applications. Configure the devices so they automatically conduct anti-malware scan. Configure devices to not auto-run content from removable media. Scan malware detection events to enterprise anti-malware administration tools. Enable DNS query logging to detect hostname lookups for known malicious domain. Enable command line audit logging for command shells such as Microsoft PowerShell and Bash. And again, they're already at an 80% or an 88%, so they're doing a good job on malware. Limit and control ports, protocols, and services. Here we want to manage the ongoing operational use of ports, protocols, and service on network devices in order to minimize windows of vulnerability available to attackers. We have 5 subcontrols for control number 9. Associate active port services and protocols to the hardware assets. Ensure only network ports, protocols, and services listening on a system with validated business needs. Perform automated port scans on a regular basis. Apply host-based firewalls or port filtering tools on end systems with default deny rule. Place application firewalls in front of critical services to validate traffic going to the server and block log unauthorized traffic. Again, they're scoring an 80% today. Data recovery, here we're already at 100%, which are processes and tools to properly back up critical information with a methodology of timely recovery. 5 subcontrols ensure all systems data is automatically backed up. Ensure key systems are backed up through processes such as imaging to enable a quick recovery. Test data integrity on backup media on a regular basis. Ensure backups are properly protected when they're stored. Ensure backups of at least one destination is not continuously addressable through operating system calls. Next area is secure configuration of switches, routers, and firewalls. Control description is to establish, implement, and actively manage the secure configuration of network infrastructure devices using a rigorous configuration management change control process in order to prevent attackers from exploiting vulnerable services and settings. Here we have 7 subcontrols. Maintain standard documented security configuration standards for all authorized devices. All configuration rules that allow traffic to flow through network devices are documented in the configuration management system. Here are all network device configurations against approved security configurations. Alert when deviations are discovered. Install the latest stable version of the security-related updates. Manage all network devices using multi-factor authentication, encrypted sessions. Ensure all network engineers use a dedicated machine for all administrative tasks. Manage the network infrastructure across connections that are separated by the business use of that network, which is network segmentation. Here they still have some considerable gaps in the configuration of networks, switches, routers, and firewalls. For boundary defense, here we have 12 subcontrols, and this is the bound F capability in CDM. We want to detect, prevent, correct the flow of information transferring networks at different trust levels with a focus on security damaging data. Again, 12 subcontrols, maintain an up-to-date inventory of the network boundaries, perform scans from outside the trusted network boundary to detect unauthorized connections, deny communications with known malicious or unused internet IP addresses, deny connections by unauthorized ports or application traffic, ensure only authorized connections, configure monitoring systems to record network packets passing through the boundary at each of the network boundaries, deploy network-based IDS sensors, unusual attack mechanisms, detect compromise at network boundaries, deploy network-based IPS to block malicious traffic at each of the organization's network boundaries, enable the collection of net flow and logging data on all network devices, ensure all network traffic to or from the internet passes through authenticated application layer proxy, deploy all encrypted network traffic at the boundary proxy prior to analyzing the content, require all remote login access to the organization's networks to encrypt data and transmit using multi-factor, and scan all enterprise devices remotely logging into the network prior to accessing the network. Here we're doing quite well. We're at 8 out of 12, but we still have room for improvement, which will be identified in the POAM. Control 13 is data protection. Again, since implementing Spirion, there's been considerable improvement in the data protection control. Here we have the processes and tools to prevent data exfiltration, mitigate the effects of exfiltrated data, ensure privacy and integrity of sensitive information. We have 9 subcontrols. Maintain an inventory of all sensitive information stored, processed, transmitted by the organization's technology standards. Remove sensitive data or systems not regularly accessed. Deploy an automated tool on the network perimeters that monitors unauthorized transfer of sensitive data. Here's where we're looking at DLP. Allow only access to authorized cloud storage or email providers. Monitor all traffic leaving the organization to detect any unauthorized use of encryption. Utilize approved whole disk encryption software to encrypt the hard drive of all devices. USB storage devices are required. Enterprise software should be used that can configure systems to allow the use of specific devices. Configure systems do not write to external removable media if there's no business need. And if USB storage devices are required, all data stored on such devices must be encrypted at best. Again, we're almost where we want to be at a 78% on this particular control. Control 14 is the controlled access based on the need to know. The control description, processes and tools to track, control, prevent, correct, secure access to critical assets such as information resources and systems, according to a formal determination of which persons, computers, and applications have a need and a right to access these critical assets based on approved classification. Here we have 9 subcontrols. Segment the network, locate all sensitive information on separate VLANs, enable firewall filtering between VLANs to ensure only authorized systems are able to communicate with other systems, disable all workstation-to-workstation communications, encrypt all sensitive information in transit, utilize active discovery tool to identify all sensitive information stored, processed, or transmitted, protect protect all information stored on systems with file system, network shares, claims, application database specific access control lists, automated tools such as host-based DLP to enforce access controls, encrypt all sensitive information at rest using a tool that requires a secondary authentication mechanism, and enforce detailed audit logging for access to sensitive data on changes to sensitive data. And here we're already scoring at 89%. Once again, Sophos and Spirion really helped improve this control. Control number 15 is wireless access. The processes and tools to track, control, prevent, correct the security use of wireless local area networks, access points, and wireless client systems. Here we have 10 subcontrols: maintain an inventory of authorized wireless access points, configure network vulnerability scanning tools to detect and alert on unauthorized wireless access points, use a wireless intrusion detection system to detect and alert on unauthorized wireless access points, disable wireless access on devices that do not have a business purpose, configure client machines to allow access to authorized wireless networks and restrict access to other wireless networks, disable peer-to-peer ad hoc wireless network capabilities, leverage the AES to encrypt wireless data in transit, ensure wireless networks use EAP-TLS, transport layer security that requires mutual multi-factor authentication, disable wireless peripheral devices such as Bluetooth and NFC unless access is required, and create a separate wireless network for personal or untrusted devices. Once again, we're already scoring 90% on wireless access control, primarily because of Aruba. Control 16 is account monitoring. Actively manage the lifecycle of a system and application accounts, including their creation, their dormancy, their deletion, in order to minimize opportunities for attackers to leverage them. For account monitoring control, we're scoring 100%. Here we have 13 subcontrols. Maintain an inventory of each of the organization's authentication systems, including those located on site or remote site, and that is Active Directory. Configure access for all accounts through as few centralized points of authentication as possible. Once again, Active Directory. Require multi-factor authentication for user accounts on systems managed on site by a third party. One login, again, which was a new implementation, allows multi-factor. Encrypt or hash with assault authentication credentials as standard within Active Directory. Ensure all account usernames authentication credentials are transmitted using encrypted channels. Maintain inventory of all accounts organized by authentication system. Establish and follow automated process for revoking system access. Disable accounts that cannot be associated with a business process. Automatically disable dormant accounts. Ensure that all accounts have expiration date. These are all standard process within this organization. Automatically lock workstation sessions after a standard period of inactivity. And again, Sophos does this, as well as monitoring to deactivated accounts through audit logging, and alert users when deviate from normal login behavior, such as time of day, workstation, location, and duration. Control 17 is the security awareness program. Control description for all functional roles in the organization, prioritizing those mission critical to the business and security. Identify the specific knowledge, skills, and abilities needed to support defense of the enterprise. Develop and execute an integrated plan to assess, identify gaps, remediate through policy, organization planning, training, and awareness programs. Here we have 9 subcontrols. Perform a skills gap analysis to understand the skills and behaviors of the workforce. That's done. Deliver training to address the skills gap. Threat security awareness training does that. Create a security awareness program for all workforce members. Ensure that the organization's awareness program is updated frequently. Phish threat again. Train workforce members on the importance of enabling and utilizing secure authentication. Train the workforce on how to identify different forms of social engineering, such as phishing and phone scam. Train the workforce on how to identify and properly store, transfer, archive, and destroy sensitive information. Train the workforce on causes for unintentional data exposures, such as losing their mobile device or emailing the wrong person. And train employees to be able to identify the most common indicators of an incident to be able to report such an incident. And here, once again, we are scoring 100%, so we're in good shape here. Next control, which is 18, application software security. It is a secure lifecycle of in-house developed acquired software in order to prevent, detect, and correct security weaknesses. Once again, we're at 100% for application software security, but because most of these are third-party applications. So in this case, since not many applications are really hosted in the data center, it's not really applicable. So we do score, we could say we score 100%, but we've done assessments of all the third-party providers as well. So let's just walk through what some of the Details are establish secure coding practices for in-house developed applications, ensure explicit error checking is performed, verify the version of all software acquired from outside the organization is still supported, use only up-to-date and trusted third-party components, use only standardized and extensively reviewed encryption, ensure software development personnel receive training in writing secure code, apply static and dynamic analysis tools to verify the secure coding practices are being adhered to, establish a process to address reports of software vulnerabilities, including a means for external entities to contact your security group, maintain separate environments for production and non-production systems, protect web applications by deploying web application firewalls, and for applications that rely on a database, use standard hardening configuration templates. Control number 19 is incident response. Protect the organization's information as well as its reputation by developing and implementing an incident response infrastructure, plans, defined roles, training, communications, management oversight, for quickly discovering an attack and then effectively containing the damage, eradicating the attacker's presence, and restoring the integrity of the network and systems. Here we have 8 subcontrols. Ensure there were written incident response plans, assign job duties for handling incidents, designate management personnel as well as backups who will support the incident handling process, devise organization-wide standards for the time required for system administrators and other workforce members to report anomalous events, assemble and maintain information on third-party contact information, publish information for all workforce members regarding reporting computer anomalies and incidents to the incident handling team, conduct routine response exercises for the workforce involved in the incident response to maintain awareness and responding to real-world threats, and an incident scoring and prioritization schema based on known or potential impact to the organization. Once again, we have a 75%. A lot of the improvement on incident response will occur once Wally Computing is really fully integrated as a third-party management company. And the last control, testing red team exercises. That's the overall strength of an organization's defense, the technology, the process, and the people, simulating objectives and the actions of an attacker. Here we have 8 subcontrols. Establish a program for pen tests that includes full scope of blended attacks, wireless, client-based, etc. Conduct regular external and internal pen tests to identify vulnerabilities and attack vectors. Perform periodic red team exercises to test organizational readiness to identify and stop attacks. Include tests for the presence of information and artifacts, useful for attackers, including network diagrams, configuration files, older pen test reports. Create a test bed that mimics a production environment for pen tests or red team attacks. Use results of vulnerability scanning assessments as a starting point to guide and focus pen test efforts. Devise a scoring method for determining the results of red team exercises so the results can be compared over time. Use any user or system accounts used to perform pen testing should be removed or restored to normal function after the test is over. So they've not done a 10 test. This is something definitely on the roadmap that we're going to have to focus on for this particular organization. So here's a summary of results. Once again, we started with what's on the network, which is 6 controls of 30%. CIS controls 1, 2, 3, 5, 9, and 11. As we said before, current score 30 is a 367. The target score is a 480. Who's on the network? 3 controls, 4, 14, 17. Current score of 222. Target score of 240, which will then be applied at 15%. Control number 3, how's the network protected? 4 controls are 20%. 7, 12, 15, 20. Current score 227. Target score 320. 4, what's happening on the network? 5 controls, 20%. CIS controls 6, 8, 16, 18, 19. Current score 376. Target score 400. And then finally, how's the data protected? Controls 10 and 13. Current score of 178. Target score 160. So they are already where they need to be on the data protection controls. So looking at the plan of action and milestones, we're going to focus first on the strategy. We'll then look at what's on the network. We'll look at who's on the network. We'll look at how the network's protected, what's happening on the network, and how the data is protected. And the way we look at this, our rating descriptions are low if the low risk to the organization, moderate if there's a moderate risk to the organization, moderate importance to business, and then high if it's a high risk to the organization, high importance to the business, and if not appropriately addressed, observation could result in significant damage. The low risk things, we're going to look to complete resolution in fewer than 3 months. Moderate, 3 to 12 months. and the high may require more than 12 months because it's a major impact. So let's take a look at where we are. First, we'll look at what's on the network, where we're focused on CIS controls 1, 2, 3, 5, 9, 11. The current score is a 367. The target score is a 480. Control number 1, we're currently a 62. We moved up to a 75, so we're pretty much where we want to be. But we want to look at port level access control working with Wally. Control number 2, we're pretty much where we are at 100%. We could develop a whitelist and implement through Sophos. Control number 3 and control number 4, we have work to do. Implement a vulnerability management program, managed by Wally, and manage configuration on endpoint service and change management process, once again by Wally. Number 9, which is currently an 80% configuration management port scans, we're pretty much where we want to be. And number 11, which is secure configuration of network devices, we're at a 43% managed accounts via jump servers and MFA as we implement Wally. Who's on the network? We have a current score of 222 and a target score of 240. We really only have one area to focus on, and that's administrative privileges, and we'll be doing that when we move to Wally computing. Control number, or focus area number 3, how's the network protected, which is 20% of the overall. CIS control 7, 12, 15, 20. Really here we need to focus on control 7, lockdown browsers, ensure DMARC, SPF, and DKIM. Boundary defense, we want to implement multi-factor authentication and scanning for malware through our firewalls. And wireless access controls, work with Wally to secure configuration of wireless networks, but it's pretty much where it needs to be. But we need pen tests and red teams. We need an independent review of third-party solutions, Norm Shield, Risk Recon, our bid site. Control, or what's happening on the network, 25% of the total. CIS control 6, 8, 16, 18, 19, and we're really in pretty good shape with this. The one that we're not doing so well is logging monitoring. We're only into 13%. We should look at continuous monitoring from Winslow Technology, Audit Wolf SIM, which is a MSSP. Beyond that, we're at 88% with malware defense, account monitoring. We want to look at Active Directory login and Sophos managed endpoint, application software security, third-party management program, as well as incident response and management, where we're going to work with Wally. And finally, how's the data protected? Really only 2 controls, 10 and 13. Our current score is 178, target score 160. So we're already where we need to be. Ensure backups by Wally and test configuration restores for those systems that are still on-prem, but they're very few. And here for data protection, we want to make sure that Verion is implemented across endpoints. One gap in data protection with the USB devices, so they want to more closely manage USB devices. So that's the program. That's how you would do a comprehensive security program, focusing on the CIS controls, building a POAM based on the CDM program. And the end result is you've got 5 areas of focus where you can improve the current score, get to your target score. And those 5 areas of focus include what's on the network, who's on the network, how the network's protected, what's happening on the network, and how the data is protected. And just as a reminder, this all maps back to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So that completes our discussion about operations deliverables. The deliverables are really measured through our scorecards. Scorecards apply to the CIS controls, and where we have gaps in our scorecard, we can look at the CDM program, focusing on the assets. Again, what's on the network, who's on the network, how's the network protected, what's happening on the network, data protected, so we can improve our security program through those mechanisms. Again, CIS controls, CDM functions, all of this maps back to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So that completes our week 10 lecture, operations deliverables, and this is the last deliverables lecture in the course. The next 4 weeks, we'll focus on newer capabilities such as the MITRE ATT&CK framework, the SOAR capability for operations, up-to-date web application or application frameworks, security frameworks, and then CMMC frameworks. So please, if you have any questions, let me know on the discussion board, and have a good week.